कदम कदम पे उसे याद जो किया होगा, जब आया बज़्म में शराबी में नाम ज़ैनब का, जब आया बज़्म में शराबी में नाम ज़ैनब का, पिसर हुसैन का बेमौत मर गया होगा, पिसर हुसैन का बेमौत मर गया होगा, रिदा भी सर पे लगी है, अली की बेटी के, रिदा भी सर पे लगी है, अली की बेटी के, ना जाने शान किसी से सामना होगा, ना जाने शान किसी से सामना होगा, दया दे शान
No, it's like that's
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. والصلاة والسلام أشرف المرسلين وخاتم النبيين أحمد مجتبى أبي قاسم محمد مصطفى ولي طيب الطاهرين صلى الله عليك يا سيدي يا مولاي يا رسول الله، صلى الله عليك يا سيدي يا مولاي يا عبد الله، يا رحمة الله وسيا، ويا بابا نجاة الأمة، فليتنا كنا معكم سادتي، فنفوضا فوضا عظيم، إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. صلوات اللهم صل على. You know, Allah has given us something that is wonderful. Well, let's just say He has given us one thing out of many things that He has given us that is wonderful. When we think about this thing that He gave us, it's such a great thing because other animals in creation might not have it. Well, at least not in this world. So we start to think, what is this thing that is wonderful in which he has given us? Allah has given us something great like called speech. Allah says in the Quran, he said, "Khalaqal insana alamul bayan." And I have created man, and I have given him speech. The fact that Allah has given man speech is a great thing. Because with this speech, we are able to relate and converse with one another. Not only that, with this speech, we use it to relate what is on our mind to express ourselves. So this is a wonder, because if Allah has not given us speech, then we'll be like the animals. Well, as we know, animals don't speak as we know. Maybe they do speak, because we see that Sulaiman, he was able to speak to the animals. But as we know of that speech, we're not able to talk to animals. So Allah, he has bestowed us with this great thing that is called speech. Now, whether what we do with this speech is all up to us. Whether we use this speech for good or we use it for bad. Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, he says, in his Risala Hukuk about the rights of the tongue, that we should not use it with words of vanity, or in other words, obscene language. Nor should we, or we should also use it for goodness, or goodness of words, and also use it for politeness. This is what that he said. So in other words, when seeing the words that is obstruct or nasty, that we should not talk in such a way that is bad. In other words, we should look at our tongues as something that is good, to be restrained from that type of language. It should be, of course. We should think about that. But unfortunately, sometimes we may use our words or our tongue for wrong. And this is what happens. Because of this, we use our tongue for wrong. It can lead us somewhere or lead us astray. One time, someone asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, basically, what would lead a person to paradise? Of course, we all want to know what leads us to paradise. Like, tell me, Rasulullah. I'd like to know this. Rasulullah, he said to him, first is taqwa. SubhanAllah, taqwa. I could do taqwa. I could be pious, inshallah. And he said, good temper. Maybe I could do that sometimes, but I'll work on that. But then he asked, so what is the thing in which will lead a person to the hellfire? Now, this is something in which we should know. Because, yes, we understand about those things that lead us to heaven. But what about those things we don't notice? Like the ones that will lead us to that fire, that nar, right? Or as they call it, jahim, right? That hell, the fire of that hell. He said that it is the gap between the two lips. That was one of the things. Of course, he said another thing along with it, but it's not necessary for this conversation. He said the gap between the two lips. That these lips in which we have, this tongue, this lisan that we have, it can lead us to the hellfire if we use it in such a way that it will make people go astray, or maybe even ourselves. Because just think about it, when they said that the tongue is mightier than the sword or the pen, but I heard the tongue. Why is that? Because when I cut someone with a knife, eventually that wound will heal. But if I cut you with my tongue, it doesn't matter how long time has passed, that injury of that tongue lashing will always be with that person that received it. so we can ponder on the words that come out of our mouths. So we know that what we say will not hurt someone, because those words can lead you to the hellfire. This is why the tongue is so dangerous if used incorrectly. But used correctly, it can also benefit as well. It can benefit. Just think about all the nasiha that you gave people, the good words you gave people that benefited them. The words in which you gave them that benefited them. It reminds me of a story. It was during the time of Muawiyah, Allah. And he was, of course, he was the caliph at the time. And he sent a person to be the governor of this tribe. I think it was Banu Hamadan. I think it was Banu Hamadan. His name was Bashir or something like that. So it was this one lady named Sauda. And she was highly upset on how this person, this governor that was sent by Muawiyah to govern over his people, how he was tormented and he was tortured. He was treating his people very bad. Very bad. These people was treated very bad. So she traveled to Syria to go to complain to him. So he heard that she was coming through the grapevine, as they might say. But, you know, of course, the riwayah said the grapevine, but as we took it through the grapevine, if we know what that means. So he had this woman arrested. As he had this woman arrested, he had her to stand before him. And they knew each other. They knew each other. Because she was a famous poet. She used to do poetry for Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali alayhi salam. And so she had a lot of poetry for him. So he said to her, she said to him reluctantly the salams. Like, salam alaikum. And well, weird, he knew about that. He knew how she felt. He said, how do you feel? Look at you now. Who you standing in front of now? What are you doing here? She said, I came to complain. I came to complain to you about the governor in which you have placed. This governor, he is doing wrong to the people. Now listen to what Muawiyah said. He said, first he said, do some poetry like you did before. She said, I cannot remember because of the tragedy of this person doing. How this person treated us, I forgot all the poetry. See, she didn't want to say it. He said, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send you back to that person, to the governor of the people, and let him do as he pleased with you. Do as he pleased. Now listen what the woman Sauda said. She said, I wish the blessed one from the grave returned to that, something to that order. And he said, who are you talking about? She said, my master, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali alayhi salam. Now what's so beautiful about this is that she told him a story. She said, one time I went to complain about one of the governors to Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali alayhi salam. And as I was complaining to him, they said that Imam basically was grabbing his beard, and then he gave her a letter. He was very upset. He gave her a letter for her to give directly to that governor, and said this letter was saying that he was no longer over this providence because he did not allow someone that is under his control to torture or torment people. So when she's told Muawiyah letting the law about how Imam Ali alayhi salam really treated people and how he did it, he said, okay, I will recommend him. But you see, by the words of her tongue, she changed even the one who is a torturer into changing his ways. We have to know that when we speak, our tongue, the words that come out of our mouth is connected to our heart. So whatever we're about to say, it has to be accepted by our heart. If it is not accepted by our heart, we do not say it. But if it is accepted by our heart, then we say it. So we see that when a person says something with their tongue, it is because it is something that is meant in their heart. So when a person who is, I can say, a very bad person, their heart may tell them not to say these words, but because of the hypocriticalness of themselves, they have no choice but to say it. connection of the heart. I thought I went dead for a moment. Salam Muhammad Muhammad. So this is how we look at the lisan, the tongue. And how before a person speak, we never judge a person on how they are. Oh, I fell? I didn't even notice. Did I knock it down? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali. The tongue is such a valuable thing to the human being that if we meet somebody, a lot of times we do not know how that person really is. We see that person, we never say anything, we look at that person as a good person. But what if once they open their mouth and start to speak and you're like, oh, astaghfirullah. This person is not good. What it is that because the person opened their mouth and start to speak, we start to realize how this person really is. This is why Imam Bakr alayhi salam, he said that man hides behind his tongue. So whatever he says, this is the reality of how that person feels and how he or she is. He said, man, I didn't know you really believed that until you opened your mouth, until you said these things. I thought you was all right, until that person speaks. Then it's a whole different ideology in which we start to think. So we see that for us to guard our tongues is very important. This is why Imam Zainul Abidin said that the right upon the tongue, that we should not have obscenity words, that it should be goodness. So whatever comes out of our mouth has to be something that is good. We should not have, how can I say it, bad words coming out of our mouth. We're not supposed to have those type of words. No. Not at all. No. Our words should be good. We should think that our tongue, that it should never even hear or even think about talking about something that is bad. This is how we should think. But not only that, we have to think about, before we speak, that what are the sins of the verbal sins? Because with our tongue, we also commit sins of verbal word sins. Amir Mu'mineen was asked about this verbal sin, and he started to explain about the tongue. He said it is small in mass, but its sins are great. That you see that our mouth and our tongue is so small. It's just a piece of meat. But what comes out of it, the sin that comes out of it is so great. So great. We never even think about that. No. You know, we just say anything. Doesn't matter. I don't care how this person feels. Whatever. If I heard them, I heard them. So what? This is how we say things. We don't care. We just hurt the person. It's astaghfirullah. We just say, let they deal with it. Don't care about nothing. But if it was on the other hand, if someone do that to us, we'd be like, no, I need to call the Marja'iyah. I need to call the representative. I need to call Allah. I need to call Aqla Bay. I'm calling everybody because this person did me wrong. it's like, come on now. But this small thing right here, this tongue, this great thing in which Allah has given us, can either hurt us or it could benefit us. It all depends on that person and how they use this tongue. Because if they use it for wrong, what will happen? Wrong will come out. So when we look at the sins of the tongue, we look at, say for instance, idle talk. Idle talk. Slander, backbiting, cursing. All these things, all these sicknesses, these illnesses of the heart, all these sins that is committed with our tongue. Now, when we look at each of them, Allah tells us to stay away from idle talk. But we love the idle talk. We love idle talk just as much as backbiting. Sometimes even a mixture of slander and a little bit of maybe, I don't know, some more bad things. We like it all. Why? Because we don't understand the greatness of the sin that is committed with these tongues, with these mouths. Just think about the sin was so bad, the curse that the tongue is so harsh that they had someone like Amir Mu'mineen alayhi salam, people believing that he had never prayed. That when he got martyred inside the masjid, people were shocked. What he was doing in the masjid? He was praying. Stuff like that. Because remember, this is spread with the tongue. People spread lies with the tongue. Just think about how Imam Hussein alayhi salam was martyred by these people. Because they said that, oh, he was a trouble for the nation, in other words. He was, how can I say, I think it's a word in which they use, in other words, a risk about our community, a risk of our community. How they use the words to make people turn. How they use the words to have people think something else. Astaghfirullah. So when we look at our words and we look at the tongue, we have to know that we must think before we allow ourselves to say anything. And we should look at that hadith in which they said that before you talk, you what? Think. Not the hadith, the story, excuse me. I'm thinking about a hadith. Before we talk, we think. We think. Because we see that the man's faith is balanced upon his value upon how he or she sees things with his words. That if his words are bad, it can lead him astray when it comes down to his faith. Because all actuality, you find a person, they could be the best of believers, but the words and their actions are something totally different. Like example, I remember this hadith, right? It was this lady that said that it was this lady. And she used to fast, offer her salat, pray salatul layl and everything. So they was telling Rasulullah about this lady, about how she was. From there you say, man, she prayed, she offered a night prayer. Man, mashallah. She's a very religious person. Wow, subhanallah. But they said she's rude and nasty towards her neighbors and people. How did you think Rasulullah took this? What do you think that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said? He said this woman is worthless in a person of the hellfire. Regardless of all that you do, you pray, you fast, you do salatul layl, you do all of this stuff. But if your words are bad towards other people, look how Rasulullah looked at this lady. He said that she is of the people of the hellfire. She is worthless. She is worthless. People of the hellfire. How many of us look at this like this? How many of us understand that the tongue can be used as a weapon, let alone something that can hurt one another? You know, today it's not going to show the time today. I'm trying to rush everything. So please excuse me. I'm cutting out as I'm going. So, when we look at instance of how Imam Zainul Abidin was, we think about a story in which Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam how he narrates from his father Imam Bakr alayhi salam. So you know that Imam Bakr was with his father in Karbala. So he said that it was one night that I was with my father, Imam Bakr, alayhi salam, was saying, I was with my father, Imam Zainul Abidin, and he asked me to get some water. He said, so I went to get some water for my father, and when I brought the water to my father said, no, give me some more water because something has fell into this water. So he said he went and got more water for his father. As he came back, his father said, this is the same night in which Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam has left us. And what he said is true. As he started to do ablution, the Imam, he told him that this is the night in which he's going to die. This is that night in which he is going to no longer be here. This is the story which Imam Bakr was telling us, telling Imam Jafar, started telling his son. So Imam Zainul Abidin, he told his son that I have one request. That you make sure you take care of my she-camel. Now we think about it, wow, just take care of my she-camel. Of course he agreed about taking care of his she-camel. So they said that the Imam, he passes away. And they buried the Imam. So he had noticed that she-camel was not around. So he went to the grave of his father and saw that the she-camel was on his stomach at the grave of the Imam, and it said almost like he was crying, the camel was crying. So he took the camel back home. Then the next day he was told that that same she-camel was at the grave of Imam Zainul Abidin, and it was acting the same way. So once again, he went and he took the she-camel back. On the third day, that she-camel went and it was reacting the same way. When it was asked, why is this camel keep on coming back? It said that this camel is mourning the Imam. This is what the story said. That the camel is mourning the Imam. So they asked, how come? They said that the Imam rode this camel for 40 Hajjs. And that the whip in which he carried, he did not never hit this camel. He put the whip in the bag and he treated the camel very well. So when the Imam died, the camel went to mourn the Imam. And it said after the 3 days of mourning the Imam, that camel itself died. We see how the importance of how the Imam even treated his animal. He did not strike the animal. He did not give any harm to that animal. So much so that the animal gave him his right of being the visitor for 3 days and mourning the Imam's death. And then himself leaving. These are the examples of our Imams. This is the example of Imam Zainul Abidin. The lessons in which he teaches us, because we even see to this day that when you look on certain platforms, when a good master died, their dog will go to their grave. You see that? But it's more so that it was an Imam that poisoned, and it was such a greater impact on that animal. We're sad because we lost the Imam, the one who has seen all that had happened in Karbala when it came down to the death and the killing of his family. This is why we have stuff like Rasulullah Hukuk, so we will not forget the rights in which will stand forth on a day of judgment and speak out our limbs and so on and so forth. May Allah help us all. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal as inna al-insana la fi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa aminu salihati وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر آخر دعوانا والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى على محمد وعلى الطاهرين الله. Yes. 2 more minutes? Oh, 2 more. I give it time to warm up. The person who the weather to warm up. Me. Drink some water, goggle, and then get the other on.